All right, let's dive right into this explainer. You might want to buckle up for this one, because today we're looking at biology, the universe, and our exact place in it through a lens that honestly sounds like pure sci-fi, but it's actually 100% scientific fact. Together, we're going to completely rethink how we view life on Earth. We're talking about a paradigm shift so absolutely profound, it reveals an astonishing truth about exactly who, or maybe I should say what, is really calling the shots in our existence. Just listen to this incredible quote from evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins. "We are survival machines, robot vehicles blindly programmed to preserve the selfish molecules known as genes." I mean, wow, that thought brings on a tiny bit of existential dread, right? But you gotta admit, it's also undeniably fascinating. Think about it. You, me, your dog, the trees in your backyard, we are all, ultimately, just throwaway survival machines. We're these temporary, lumbering robots built by ancient, invisible molecules just to ensure their own immortal survival. So, let's get into section 1, the gene's eye view, shifting our perspective on evolution. Now, we aren't actually looking at a brand new theory of evolution today. Instead, we're adopting a totally new way of seeing facts that we've literally known since Darwin. And this Necker cube you're looking at, it perfectly illustrates this paradigm shift. You've probably seen this optical illusion before, right? It's just a two-dimensional pattern, but if you stare at it for a few seconds, your brain suddenly pops it into a three-dimensional cube. Keep staring, and bam, the front of the cube suddenly flips to become the back. The actual data hitting your eye hasn't changed one bit, but your brain happily alternates between two completely different perspectives. Well, just as that cube flips in your mind, we're going to flip how you view natural selection, shifting from the angle of the individual organism straight to the angle of the gene. Which brings us to section 2. The illusion of altruism. Why exactly do animals sacrifice themselves? Think about it. If nature is truly this place of ruthless competition, red in tooth and claw, we've got a massive puzzle to solve. Why on earth do kamikaze bees tear out their own vital organs to protect the hive? Or why do birds risk their own lives to warn the rest of the flock? For a really long time, we were taught this comforting myth to explain it, called group selection. Basically, it's the idea that animals do things for the good of the species or the group. It sounds lovely, doesn't it? But mathematically and practically, it completely falls apart. Let's do a thought experiment. Imagine a group of purely altruistic, completely self-sacrificing individuals. Now imagine just one single selfish mutant rebel is born into that group. This rebel acts like a ruthless Chicago gangster. He absolutely refuses to sacrifice himself. He gobbles up the food everyone else gathered, and he just lets others take all the risks. Because he's taking zero risks, he survives way longer and has way more offspring. And pretty soon, his kids inherit those same selfish traits, and they completely overrun that whole group of pure altruists. So to really grasp what's going on here, we have to look closely at how biology actually defines these behaviors. Altruism and selfishness have absolutely nothing to do with conscious, subjective motives or warm, fuzzy feelings. We really have to strip away all our human emotional baggage here. In biology, they're defined strictly by their effects on an entity's statistical chance of survival. It's just a numbers game. An act is altruistic if it lowers your statistical chance of survival while raising someone else's. And as we're about to see, what looks like altruism at the level of the individual animal is almost always ruthless selfishness at the level of the gene. All right, let's step back in time. Section 3, the primeval soup. A journey back 3 billion years. To truly rebuild our understanding of biology from the ground up, we actually need to rewind to a time way before life even existed. In the very beginning, we just had unordered atoms bouncing around. But eventually, over hundreds of millions of years, the Earth's seas became this sort of primal soup of simple organic molecules, churning under the intense energy of the sun and lightning strikes. And then, at some point, one extraordinary, highly improbable accident occurred. Just by chance, a molecule formed that had a very special, unbelievable property. It could make copies of itself. We call it the accidental replicator. The very second that happened, evolution kicked off, eventually leading all the way to the complex survival machines we see today. But, as you might guess, that early copying process wasn't totally perfect. Mistakes were made, and soon that primeval soup was just packed with competing varieties of replicators. So the big question is, which ones won? Well, natural selection heavily favored replicators with 3 distinct characteristics. First up, longevity, meaning the molecule itself resists being broken apart. Second, fecundity. It replicates incredibly fast. And third, copying fidelity. It replicates with high accuracy. The replicators that hit the jackpot and possessed these three traits quickly outcompeted all the others, just gobbling up all the free-floating building blocks left in the soup. Moving on to Section 4, Building Survival Machines. From protective protein coats to lumbering robots. As that primeval soup got more and more crowded, those free building blocks became a super scarce resource. Replicators suddenly had to compete to survive. Some figured out how to chemically break up their rivals. Others discovered how to defend themselves by building literal, physical walls of protein around themselves. Guys, these were the very first living cells. The replicators weren't just nakedly existing anymore. They started actively constructing vehicles to ensure their continued existence. And over 4 billion years, those simple vehicles evolved from microscopic coats to the massive, incredibly complex, lumbering robots that we call plants and animals today. And this ancient mechanism brilliantly illustrates our modern replicators, what we now know as DNA. Think of the DNA inside every single one of your cells as a massive, multi-volume set of an architect's blueprints. It's a great way to picture it. Your chromosomes are the thick volumes themselves, and the genes are the individual pages within those volumes. You literally have a complete master set of blueprints sitting inside the nucleus of almost every single cell in your body, containing the exact step-by-step instructions on how to build you. That takes us to Section 5, the immortal coils, denizens of geological time. So what exactly is a gene in this context, and how on earth does it survive when our physical bodies are so incredibly fragile? Well, it all comes down to the bizarre mechanics of sex and reproduction. When sex cells, sperm or eggs, are created through a process called meiosis, this wild thing called crossing over occurs. Imagine taking those massive architect's volumes you got from your mom and the ones you got from your dad, tearing out big wads of pages from each, and physically swapping them. The genes are being shuffled exactly like a deck of cards. The resulting sperm or egg contains a completely unique set of blueprints, which leads to a brand new, totally unique survival machine being born. But here is the absolute secret to all of this. While the specific hand of cards you're dealt is completely temporary, the cards themselves, the genes, are never actually destroyed by the shuffling process. They just change partners and march right on into the next generation. And this brings us to a really crucial point. The true unit of selection and evolution absolutely cannot be the individual body. We individuals are far too fleeting. We're these unique, temporary combinations that are built, live our lives, and then die, all in a single generation. You just cannot have evolution by selecting between entities when there is only one very fleeting copy of each. The only thing that actually survives long enough and stays intact enough to truly be selected over vast geological time is the potentially immortal gene. Now, this probably leaves you with a massive paradox. You might even be thinking of it right now. If genes are just these ruthlessly selfish, independent little molecules fighting for their own survival, how on earth do they collaborate to build something as incredibly complex, highly coordinated, and cooperative as a human body? To resolve this, let's use the rowing crew metaphor. Think of a gene like a rower in a boat race. Sure, individual strength absolutely matters. A selfish rower desperately wants to be in the winning boat so they can get the prize. But you can't win the race alone, right? You need 8 colleagues rowing with you. If you have a boat full of exclusively left-side rowers, you're just going to spin in circles, no matter how ridiculously strong they are. A quote-unquote good gene is simply one that works well in the environment of the rest of the gene pool. Natural selection favors genes that know how to cooperate perfectly with the other genes they just happen to share a body with. They build these complex bodies together because, at the end of the day, it's the most selfishly effective way to ensure they all survive and get copied into the next round. And that brings us right back to this profound realization. The genes are the immortals. We are their survival machines. You and I, we're just temporary federations built by the invisible geological scale march of these immortal coils. It completely reframes our entire existence, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. As you look in the mirror tomorrow morning, I want you to ask yourself a question. Are you really the one driving your life, or are you just a temporary vessel blindly carrying immortal passengers to their very next destination?